Hi, my name is Scott Van Suey. I'm the principal with Land Images. We're the landscape architecture firm that's been engaged by the city of West Hollywood to design the plaza that we're talking about today. So the point of this video presentation is to sort of describe the community outreach process that's we've undertaken so far in preparation for the design of this project, and the initial design process that we've been through. We're going to discuss that, which includes the design of the plaza, in addition to the design of the art element. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the outreach process. Diane Fazio from our office is also going to talk about the design aspects of the plaza, our preliminary design. And then Brian Howe from Green Meme, who's part of the artist team, is going to discuss the art element. So Diane, go ahead and start the slides and we'll get going. Okay, thanks, Diane. This is a slide, just a brief overview of the community outreach process, a summary of what we've done so far. The detailed results of each event that we had and the surveys we took are posted on the city's website. There's a link on this presentation that takes you to it, but it's on the city's website for this project. So that has all the details about every survey that was taken and what the responses were and the information that we gathered in detail. Anyway, just in summary, we had numerous pop-up events on the site. We had we closed the site and did a workshop with different topics. We engaged the Rosewood School, the nearby elementary school, with an activity. And so the next few slides, I'll talk a little bit more about these things. We had 3 engagement workshops on the site where we just sort of interacted with people who were there at the time. And so we held it at different times, different dates. One of the events was held during Pride weekend of 2019. And then 2 more were held the following month or a couple months later. We had a survey prepared. We talked to people. We did some mapping exercises to kind of find out people's sort of feelings about the area in general, about the site, and what they like about it, what they don't like about it, just to gather initial input. So go ahead to the next slide, Diane. This is a little bit of a summary of some of the things that we heard. These word clouds sort of describe results from some of the questions, but the bold words are sort of things that were heard more frequently. And this kind of gives an overview of sort of the general feeling people have about the site, about the city of West Hollywood, about the area, and things that they'd like to see in the area. What aspects of West Hollywood are you proud of? Diversity, community, pride, city. That was the kind of responses we got. The things that bring people together: art, music, people, food. So this gives just a general feedback about the feelings that we got. Okay, this is one of the particular questions that I think was interesting. We got some interesting results and some really useful results from. What is the area missing? 49% of the people responded that they wanted either green space or more public space and public seating, which is an interesting response and kind of connects well with the design of a plaza here. Some of the other things are highlighted in green that we're actually addressing directly in the project, including bike amenities, making it more walkable, things like that. So, okay, let's go to the next slide. We held an event there also where we closed the parking lot and we set up booths to talk about specific topics at each one. We talked about the results of the surveys that so far. We have a parking circulation, parking and traffic circulation layout, different ones that we talked to people about, which I'll show here in a minute. There was an artist-led workshop, which we're going to talk about on the next couple slides. We had Elizabeth from the city was there to talk about the initiatives the city is undertaking to deal with the homeless population. And we had some other sort of on-site activities to get people's feedback about the site. Okay, this is the parking and circulation survey that we took. We showed on the left, this is the existing parking lot that you see on the left. We showed 4 options for different configurations for including parking, including vehicular access to and from the side parking lot that will remain in place, of course. and to provide parking. The one that seemed to be the most well received was option B, which is blown up here, which is the one that provided the most parking while also providing a pretty large usable plaza space with a buffer between the parking and the plaza. So that seemed to be the most popular option, and that's the one we're showing in the plan that you'll see in a little while. The artist event was sort of organized around a game that was created by Brian and Freya, the artist team. And the game was sort of set up in a way to get people to think about the space and a public space from different viewpoints without, getting trying to get your mind out of the fact that it's a parking lot right now, but think about what it could be from different perspectives. So these people would pull a card. They might pull the gardener card where they think about it from the green space perspective. The traveler, think about it from moving through the space. The guardian, think about sort of maybe safety issues, and astronomer views in and out of the space. So anyway, that was the kind of way the game was organized. And the next slide shows sort of the results of one of the games, but the artist team collected photographs of each game and used the information to sort of drive the ideas for developing the artwork for the space. Okay, there was also an event with the Rosewood School, which is an elementary school nearby, where the children from the school actually kind of played the game on paper and did some of their own design work, and it coincided with some curriculum that they have at the school. So that was a really interesting and fun event that we held at the site too. Okay, some of the results from the game and the outreach process were that there was some commonality that we came across and that we've included in the design so far. Most people thought that there should be a focal point in the middle. They like the idea of having gardens, having seating, having shade, having art. They felt like buffering the street, the traffic noise, the visuals of the traffic would be good things to sort of buffer and hide. So we got a lot of common ground to work from this process. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And I'll introduce Diane, and she's going to talk about the specific conceptual design that we produced for the plaza.
So this is the site plan for the plaza. I am not going to spend a lot of time on this right now. We'll get back to it, but I wanted to give you a sense of how it looks. We have the artwork in the middle. We have open space, flexible event space above it, and we have curved planters that echo the forms and embrace the artwork. And our goal was to create a whole that worked together. The games cards that Scott was talking about are manifest on the left. These are the synopsis of the results. And then on the right is how it's played out in the current site plan. So for instance, the contemplator is somebody who's seating, where is it comfortable to sit and just relax. Not surprisingly, the answer during our outreach was near Coffee Bean, but always it was away from Beverly and closer to the buildings. And we have seating in those areas, but because we're providing a buffer, we're also providing some seating elsewhere as well. Also, another example is the Guardian. People wanted a strong buffer to Beverly. They wanted separation from parking and a separation from traffic on Bonner and a separation from the views of cars coming. So again, we didn't create a wall across Beverly. That would have not been appropriate, but we did try to create areas that address those issues while at the same time allowing it to be more permeable. So the overall site plan, we'll just take a minute to look at it here. The artwork has seating both inside and alcoves for seating outside. There's built-in seat walls, buffer of planting, paving that's concrete and concrete pavers and extends in some form, maybe slightly less decorative, into the parking. The paving also extends through the sidewalk. We're trying to kind of take the whole area as part of the plaza. Number one here is the Beverly Parkway. So we're part of the streetscape project, and that strip will be planted to match everything else. Number 9, these are raised planters that are curved around the sculpture, but they're also curved in that they raise up towards Beverly about 30 inches high, creating a bit of a walled area to buffer the street. There's built-in seating near the bus stop, and we're keeping the existing tree. This is a view if you're coming to the plaza from the parking lot. Another view in front of the sculpture. Also note that the furniture is stand-in here. And another view also from the center of the plaza looking back towards the sculpture, and you can see the curved walls that I was mentioning. And now I'm going to turn it over to Brian, who will talk a little bit about the artwork specifically.
Thank you, Diane. Yeah, we'll speak quickly about the artwork. I know there's a lot to get through. Early on, just for Freya and I, it was always important that the sculpture be a reflection of the outreach, a big part of the results of the game and all those things. We played it out in numerous scenarios in ways that it could take shape on the site. And from the beginning, as we began to look at all the different types of outreach that were done, we were looking for patterns of things what were things that were near universal? What were things that were almost fully agreed upon? And the idea of a circular round object at the center of the plaza was from the beginning always a very popular idea. I think in some cases it was people had visions of it as a fountain. And for this site, a fountain is problematic, but to some extent, that presence of a sculpture, a central focusing element to the site was something that we always wanted to try to provide. We also, this artwork and like a lot of our artworks, we want our artwork to reflect the values of the community and to really take to heart the different considerations that the community has brought to us to try to incorporate in that art opportunity. Several things really were driving factors: views, seating opportunities, shade. These were all things that were very common elements that people would have desired to see in this sculpture. And we also wanted it to carry a certain air of welcome and centrality, permeability, and openness. We wanted to respect the business owners. You can see in the top image there, we've really been sensitive to the heights and the view sheds of numerous different conditions in this artwork. And so a lot of this is what you see is literally taking the feedback that came, and we took a solid object and allowed that feedback and where these things should be and where they would be best suited to carve away at this solid. And that's basically what you see here. And so we'll talk briefly now about what each portal means and where it came from. You're seeing here at the top, we'll just speak quickly to that. This is the intersection of Beverly and Bonner Drive. It's one of the most prominent kind of views of the plaza. Here, we have the Guardian, which turns into a brass material. We'll talk about that in a minute. And at the bottom, you're seeing the gardener cut out, which is kind of like a trellis. So we'll just start talking about materials just briefly, so where the different cards come in, we try to have a material that somewhat matches so that where these different voids and opportunities show up in the artwork, they have a kind of reflective color so that there's an intentionality that's expressed in why that void is there. And to those that know the history of this project, they'll understand why that happened and where the generation of the models was played much like the game. It was sequential in moves. And so the performer in this case was the first of those moves. And so it carved away the giant sky opening of the pavilion, and basically is one of the most primary moves on that solid. And then you see in the back the contemplator, which we'll see from different views, that provided a kind of seating opportunity and lounge space on the north side of the sculpture where there's lots of shade. Down in the bottom here, you're seeing the gardener cutout. That's where we try to have a kind of living surface, which is basically kind of a trellis, but we wanted to have the presence of green. Also for the guardian, again, that's kind of a prominent corner. So we really wanted to have something really nice and could carry a kind of reflective quality to almost like a slight mirroring of its surrounding condition. In the Traveler, which is one of the main portals into the pavilion, that's lined in wood. All of these kind of being kind of base elemental materials, something else we also kind of like. The astronomer, a cutout to one of the most important views we feel is the view down to Bonner Drive, and that big tree, the way it kind of comes in and plays in with your view. It's also oriented to certain celestial conditions. It's in one of the more interesting view spots of where the sculpture sits. So that's done in like a black tile. The outside of the sculpture is done in completely like a scraped finished concrete, which we're hoping to be something that can directly tie to one of the paving materials of the landscape, so that we can try to make this appearance of that the sculpture kind of almost just emerges out of the plaza. Here's like another view, different time of day. Well, Diane, I believe, will speak to it here in just a moment, but another thing we're really excited about is how the sculpture at night, it's almost like a canvas for a whole new experience. And the way that this sculpture can be lit through the landscape will kind of provide this very dynamic, breathing kind of quality to the sculpture that really will tie home what the very meaning of this original project was designed to do, and give the presence of a holistic blend of art and landscape. But basically, we're really excited about this project. Thank you for listening. If anybody has any questions, we're here for it at the end to talk about the art.
So as Brian said, there's an enormous opportunity to incorporate lighting, both to really enhance the sculpture, the form of the sculpture, and obviously, very importantly, to provide safety and visibility. We have a lighting designer on the team who will be starting very shortly, and we're quite excited about it. We have done a couple studies of views looking at the sculpture from around the model. So if you look here in the upper right, you see numbers that point to the different views. So number 5 here is looking from this point of view. This slide shows something that I hope no one can perceive, but I put it here because it is a factor, which is that there's a sewer line that it goes down the center of Bonner, and there's a manhole, and both of those items need to be protected and accessible. So we were asked to not put any trees near the sewer line, so they are clear, and we also were asked not to put any big footings within that space so that these things can be maintained, and we're granting an access point. Some of the landscape materials, as Brian mentioned, some of the planter walls will try to pick up the texture of the sculpture itself. The paving in places will have some of that texture, not as textured, but reflected. And the paving in general will be a mixture of concrete and concrete pavers. Our inspiration is upholstery textile in a nod to the design district. Some possible furnishings here. The theme here is colorful and also round forms when we can. The seat topper in yellow at the top We don't plan to cover something that fully, but we can use these toppers to add backs and armrests to the built-in seating, which we do want to do to make them more user-friendly. Planting, we are part of the streetscape project, and that plant palette is shown on the left. We're also another part, so we want to be part of that, but we also want to stand apart a little bit and create something that's a little more native plant and habitat oriented, with planting that's maybe a little looser and freer, but at the same time also pick up some of the elements that are in the streetscape. So we have native shrubs, structural shrubs, and some trees, both deciduous and evergreen. This is a shade study that was done. The top row is morning, the center row is noon, and the bottom row is afternoon. Because we have trees along the west, they're able to cast shade across the plaza in the afternoon. Noon is a challenge in the center, although to the west is well covered. So I want to thank you for listening to our description of the project, and I look forward to discussing it more.